Today we're going to be talking about doing an online church setup. This is my recommendations for what we can do during this different time of worship with the coronavirus that is taking over, and we are having to adapt. So this online church setup, first thing to deal with is the location. Typically you want to get a room that is capable of being blacked out so that you can affect the lighting. Right now I have on me the main key light, which is this big soft box that's above the shot here. And as well, I've got a field light to the right. I've got more field lights to the back right to kind of separate me from the background. And these things provide a bit of depth and focus to your video. But it comes from having the room not receiving natural sunlight. That, of course, can also be accomplished if you record at night. So I'm primarily suggesting that we do a pre-recording. The video will be then post-production edited and sent out to the congregation. The blacking out piece and the sound absorption, simply using soundproofing panels to kind of control the audio that comes in. You know, there's always outside noise like cars passing by or sirens from emergency vehicles. So rather than have that, you can put a little bit of soundproofing on your windows and on your walls. So outside of the studio location, I get back to that lighting piece again. It's important to have video quality lighting. If I were to, let's see how I can do this easily. Give you an example of what it looks like without the field light. That's without the field light. And I'll take away my key light. That's without my key light. Now, because the camera's pretty good, it still looks kind of okay. I still got my side field over here, but it is not as quality as if you then add back in the field light, which fills in the side of your face. It's going to give you a little bit of definition. And the main key light kind of shows exactly where you are. And I think I turned on the one that's a little too bright. Luckily, the autofocus in the camera will adjust for that as well. You don't want to have too much of the blinding T-zone here. So let's see if I can adjust that for us. Yeah, I think that's the softer one there. So that's lighting. The hair light, I have using just the room light that's in the room, and it's probably not perfectly positioned, but it's kind of okay for what I'm doing. In terms of audio, I'll be looking at the digital mixer, and I've got a similar thing going on right now. If you notice, I'm using my microphone to record in to the digital I/O interface. It is providing audio that's going to be recorded into my iPad, and I'll be able to sync that up in the end. You do that typically with a clap. You've seen movie producers do that white bar, and they clap like that with the little thing, and they'll say action, and it shows a blip visually and audibly so that you can line up your information together. So your digital mixer will be the input location. It serves as audio interface too, but it will be the location for you to input the preacher's mic, the vocalist mic, the instruments, drums, keys. As many vocalists as you have, as many inputs as you have. It is not necessary for it to have so much of a live in the room loudspeaker. Normal applications in a church setup where you were doing the situation live and you had a congregation there, yes, you would want to have the output to the room, but in these difficult and trying times, You don't really need it. It's going to be recorded into the mixer, and everything's going to be post-production done. So the next piece to kind of discuss keyboards and instruments. When you're plugging in them, you're sending that XLR into the mixer. Real easy to run lines that goes from 1/4 inch, which is what the instrument insert audio cables look like, the little silver or sometimes gold tipped connections or jacks for your keyboard, and then of course mics for the drums. Now I use digital drums as well, which are amazingly better in terms of when you're doing the post-production editing, because it does so much of the mixing for us, and you don't have to try to tune out the room and set up the big drums and make certain you got the dampening and certain it doesn't overpower the room. And if it's in a small room like the studio is, you'd have that versus the mics, and it's all cushioned in one room. You couldn't do that at the same time as vocalists in the room, because vocal mics would then only be picking up primarily drums. So digital drums help with that. Looking at computers, I've got the MacBook Pro that we'll be using. Typically you want a good MacBook Pro for audio, video, and photography. I also use iPads because I've just moved to making my setup be as mobile as possible. iPad has some strong software we use. This one's called Cubasis. Cubasis is the software that I'm using to record the audio that I'll be then merging later on in post-production with the video. All the video and all this stuff can be sent into the iPad again into a program called LumaFusion. So let's talk about video editing for a second there. LumaFusion is the software package that it's kind of like a DAW, a digital audio workstation that we use for recording, for audio recording, but it does it for video. And so we'll be using that to post-production merge everything together, audio, video, and everything. It can also show where the lyrics are going to be. That's what I use my Mac for. I also use my Mac for my lighting. I got the background lighting going on. Well, maybe I can do it better that way. Yes, that's me changing the background lighting. That was yellow. This is green. Here's pink. Here's a mixture of some colors. Do whatever you want to do for the background lighting. So I've got that running on Light Key, and as well for projection I use ProPresenter, which is kind of the industry standard in the church world for utilizing a lower third of lyrics. Like you'd be able to see what I'm saying here printed below. You can do it later on in Keynote if you'd like to, for those people who are trying to save money, but ProPresenter is kind of what people expect to see. So moving right along, you can use one of the TV screens to literally post it right next to you. You'll see a lot of churches who do online worship. They'll have, instead of having a wall mount or big projection, rear projection, they'll post a TV screen right there, and because of the proximity with the person and the TV screen, it looks great. You can also overlay, if you just put a blue screen up there for later on, you can overlay something real digital, but it will really work for the time being. So iPads, MacBook Pros, rear projection, DSLR camera, any good DSLR. I typically tend to go towards Canons, just because for my photography and videography friends, they are kind of better. It's an Android versus iPhone argument, and if you're in the iPhone camp with most of us who stand on the lower side, it is literally going to be the one that most people will bump into. But Sony's will work fine. It's all about budgeting. They are not cheap investments. If we're doing a live actual simulcast, so to speak, we would send it to Wirecast, which is a software that uses all the different layers from the audio, from the video, from the ProPresenter, and it merges them live for the output to happen right immediately. We in post would do the same thing, so we don't really need Wirecast on the front end, but later on as we upgrade and continue to use online worship, it would be something you'd use. But multi-tracks is what I utilized for providing all the instrumentation that wouldn't be in the room. So it'd probably just be me and a drummer, and we'd play through the worship music and have the vocalists kind of sing along with us. And we're able to, because it's multi-tracks, not a karaoke track, we can manipulate it and start back from the beginning if we want to do a certain section of the song. Say we want to do a verse again, or go back to the intro, change the tempo, merge into another song. You're able to do that with a multi-track versus a karaoke sort of CD playing thing that just has a straight through song. You have to do it that way. So those are the things that I would suggest, all of which is what I'm using as I talk to you. I know the finances are always tough in this scenario because the giving's down during this wonderful quarantine because people aren't allowed to work. It just makes sense. So, financially, the church wouldn't have to do much as we start. Obviously, later on, it'd be great to not muzzle the ox, but in this first section, we can literally do it completely the same way without big hassle. Where would we go? We could do it at the church. I think New Jersey, though, is doing a shutdown, so this is specifically for the church I'm speaking to. They're doing a shutdown of the entire state. I think that you're allowed to maybe go to grocery stores and things like that, but typically don't want you doing something at the church. So it would be possible in the event that we needed to do things in Philadelphia to do it here, or at some other location, or wherever we choose, but we'd have to be able to black out the room and get the lighting scenario to working, plus the audio. So it takes a bit of a setup prior to, and that's probably our only component. If we can get the recordings done earlier in the week, so for instance like Wednesday or Thursday, it gives us Friday and Saturday if we need to re-record something, or if the editing time needs to be done. So these are my considerations and thoughts, and would love your feedback so that we could see how we can master this online worship.